Hi, everybody. Hope everyone can hear me. Let's check it all out. And I'm coming on very late. It can't be helped. We're in talks with law enforcement and officials, because the mother lode of criminality, the mother lode of crimes. Bob Moore, El Paso Matters, El Paso Community Foundation, Kathleen Gannon, KTEP, Angela Kachurga, right? It's just a mother lode of crimes, a mother lode of crimes. It's not even being biased. It's not bias reporting. It is way beyond that. It's absolutely a mother lode of crimes. So let me see. Let's get on here. Make sure everything is working. And I know I'm burning the midnight oil. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here. And so, I hope everyone gets a chance to see this because it's, and I know it seems like everything takes so long, but really, in the scope of everything, it's a miracle that everything is happening so soon. Really, it is just such a miracle because the level of criminality that is being exposed here. Uh, it's been years and years and years in the making, and here we are, almost 5 years, and we have exposed it. It's just huge. It's just so huge. So let's start from the very beginning. It's June 8th, 2025, early morning, June 8th, sorry, June 8th, 2025. And we are at 1,771 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room on Fort Bliss and his life was taken from him. Why? Why? Because he was a whistleblower, he was a witness. He was a whistleblower and witness in the ongoing investigations from the commander in chief, from the chief law enforcer, from the chief magistrate, which was at the time and is now, thank God, um, President Donald Trump. So President Donald Trump, I don't even need to explain it to you, but that his policy and his platform was all about securing the border, was all about securing that U.S. Mexican border right there. Of course, El Paso, which is the front door to the United States, of course, the sister city being Juarez, Mexico, just about the most dangerous city in the world, and El Paso being the home of Fort Bliss. Of course, the commander in chief would want to secure that border, not shut the border, but secure the border. Those are two different things. Those are two different things. When you secure a border, that means you know who's going in and out, who's crossing it, right? And of course, if you have your military base with your most valuable assets, like our volunteer sons and daughters, and equipment and weapons and so much money. The military, we give them so much money. They have $1 million, a $1 trillion budget. And so, it is ripe for fraud, right? It is like the apple on the tree. It's an apple on the tree. And so, of course, you absolutely, as president of the United States, as commander in chief, as the chief magistrate, as the chief law enforcer, it's your duty. It's absolutely your duty. You're a rotten president. You are a rotten commander in chief if you do not secure that border, and keep the infiltrators, keep the criminals from coming in and taking key positions that Americans, sometimes we're so busy doing our own lives, that we're not paying attention. You see, we're not paying attention, and this is all about a family network, that is absolutely criminal, is absolutely tied to the Mexican cartel, Willie Moya. And Willie Moya, I mean, that sounds like the chocolate factory, right? It sounds like Willy Wonka. Willie Moya is not a chocolate factory, it is a death trap. He was absolutely a a scoundrel, and very high up as a Mexican cartel leader, very high up. And he had a nightclub. He had nightclubs, right? He had one that was very, very close to the border, that did all kinds of things that you don't even want to describe on a live stream. And I know because I lived in El Paso. I grew up in El Paso. I crossed those bridges all the time. And in 2020, even during the whole lockdown, I crossed it almost, I think, around 3 dozen times, going over there without any kind of cover on my mouth, any kind of fear, because I don't know, I just don't believe in it. I just don't believe in, I just think that, if you have something that's like so dangerous, that God wouldn't make something like that, because we'd all be dead. We'd all be dead, I mean, we're not the cleanest people. We're not, the most careful, human beings are not the most careful. No, I just don't believe in it. I just don't. And I just love clean water. Let's just have some really good clean water and good hygiene. And, I don't know. So I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid. And I went over to Mexico during that whole lockdown, probably 3 dozen times. And I went to restaurants and went into bathrooms and hugged people, and people cried on me. They were so tormented. They were so tormented, over there, because the crime is so bad. The crime is so bad. We're talking about very, very deadly and vicious crime. Okay, very, I mean, it's like, what they did to Richard, what they did to my son. I mean, it's just, they were crying on me. And um one time I had a cross that someone had given me, um and I had a person come up crying, a sister, about her brother. And I felt like my heart just broke for her. And I gave her, the only thing I could give her, was this little cross pin that I had just been given. And I said, I hope that the person that gave me this understands that I'm passing it forward to give some relief to this sister. Um, and I remember that. It's just heartbreaking what's going on over there. So, of course, we would have a lousy, lousy president if we did not secure the border. And he, along with this securing the border, comes the realization that there is crimes going on, right? When you're trying to secure a border and there's a mutiny going on, because absolutely we know there was a mutiny going on. We know that there's a mutiny going on right now. President Trump is handling it a little bit better. He's more aware, I guess you can say that he's more aware, and he has people in place that, the second time around, you learn from the first time, right? And especially President Trump, he really, you don't have to tell him twice. You don't have to. He absolutely understands how vicious, politics can be, and he understands. Um, and why do I know? Because I just follow him totally, and we, yeah, can't say more. I'm not at liberty to say more, but I can tell you this, that he was absolutely investigating what was going on his administration in El Paso and on Fort Bliss, the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. Richard had made multiple CPS complaints. He had called 911 multiple times. Of course, he told CID, and he was in communication with FBI Houston. He was in communication with Washington, D.C. So he was absolutely a witness to these investigations that were ongoing, to secure our border and to root out the criminal trafficking and this contract fraud, because President Trump is all about um, making sure that we don't have fraud, waste, and abuse, right? And this is not me being even though I am a supporter, but being a supporter and just trying to give a false narrative or whatever. It's not false at all. It's absolutely, you know them by their fruit. And he's absolutely trying to cut fraud, waste, and abuse with this Doge. And I think this is why there was a little rift between Elon, Mr. SpaceX, and President Trump, because not enough was being cut with Doge. Not enough was being cut. And I say SpaceX because, of course, like NASA and SpaceX, they get, oh my gosh, the subsidies are just, it's just, let's not do it, right? Let's not do it, because we have $37 trillion in debt. And I think that, even being the richest man in the world, you're so used to making the money. And of course, all his stuff is because of these subsidies, the electric, electric vehicle subsidies and the SpaceX subsidies, and he controls a lot of drones. He's a big drone person, but President Trump is the president of the United States, and he has made promises that he wants to keep to the American people. And so, I think that caused a little bit of a rift, and I think they'll make up. I think they have too much in common being billionaires. They have too much in common. But we'll see. But this is what was going on in El Paso. But the people, the criminals, the criminal traffickers, the fraudster contractors, they weren't very happy that President Trump was investigating them and auditing them, and wanting to secure the border, and also trim fat, right? Trim the fraud, waste, and abuse. They weren't happy about that, and so and so they were absolutely targeting President Trump, and because they were targeting President Trump, just like they did with Yvonne Rosales, they targeted Yvonne Rosales. That was a micro of the macro, right? But Richard was part of the macro. Okay. Richard was part of the macro. He was a whistleblower. He was a witness to the investigations that were in, as part of the investigations going on that President Trump was doing, because of Fort Bliss, of him being the commander, and President Trump being the commander in chief, and Richard being the patriot, the whistleblower soldier on Fort Bliss, witnessing the absolute criminal trafficking and fraud, um, and the violations that were going on Fort Bliss. And how do I know? Because he told me. He told me it was so bad. He said it was so bad. He was so bad. It was so bad. And you have to understand, Richard, he was the youngest of four, right? He could take a little bit of disappointment. Of course he could. He was the youngest of four. Um, and he had so many different experiences in life with many different types of people, from Ireland to Germans to South Koreans to all kinds of people. Oh my gosh, all kinds. That he could absolutely withstand a lot. I mean, he was the distinguished undergraduate for his cycle in basic training. And he said, oh, it wasn't too hard. It wasn't too hard. You just have to follow orders. Follow orders, do your best, right? You just have to aspire. You just have to do your best. And and he was the fastest runner in his unit. So uh, he was competitive. He, uh, could take a disappointment. Um, so when he said it was very, very bad, it was very bad. It's not like he was a flower. Richard wasn't a flower. He was a black belt in karate, and the youngest of four children, right? I mean, and he was my son. He wasn't a flower. He wasn't easily withering, or I mean, I probably could tell you how many times I even saw him cry, because he never cried. He was tough. He was a tough cookie. He was a tough cookie. And when he said it was very bad, then you knew that it was really bad. It was criminal trafficking, it was fraud, and he said it was so bad that he had changed his mind. He wasn't going to make the army a career. It was just, it had just breached all of his, it had destroyed his view of what the army was. Because when he saw the army, he saw his dad, and Rob is a total hero. He's Oh, and I know he's my husband, but he's his record is just amazing. It's just amazing record. Um, and he would never say it because he's humble. He'd never say it. He, served over for 30 years with total honor. And how do you know this? Because the likes of Bob Moore and this family, okay, so you have this criminal family that has weaseled their way into El Paso, into El Paso's positions of power, government positions of power, and even the media positions of power. And I call it Bob Moore's group. Maybe I should call it the El Paso Community Foundation's group, right? Because really, the El Paso Community Foundation is the parent company of El Paso Matters. And there would be no Bob Moore in El Paso Matters if it wasn't for El Paso Community Foundation. But I call it Bob Moore's group, um, and he got into that position, not to be a journalist, not to be a reporter. No, that is not. El Paso Matters started after the Walmart mass shooting. It was absolutely to control narratives, to intimidate witnesses, to target whistleblowers, to, absolutely commit a mother load of crimes, And that was with his wife, Kathleen Gannon, and their family ties with R&A Chavira Auto Group is just shocking, absolutely shocking, because in December of 2019, December 31st, um, supposedly, there's a lot of questions, and it's all um, being investigated right now, is this purchase of a car. So this is, you know, you're talking about 2019. Richard wasn't murdered until July of 2020, till 2020. So, there was an absolute targeting of Richard because, and I've always said this, his whistleblowing came first. His whistleblowing was in 2019. He was a witness at really the height, just about the height of President Trump's investigations and cleaning up the fraud, waste, and abuse. And 2020, they just went full mutiny on him, in so many different ways, right? And everybody looks back at that time, and if you do look back at the time, you'd absolutely realize everything makes sense now, that they were trying to interfere with the election, that they were trying to smear President Trump, just make with false narratives, super false narratives. I mean, why didn't Bob Moore carry the Mayela Crucius marriage, the romance that was going on in the Walmart case? Why didn't he? He had that very early on. Why didn't he report on it? Why didn't he report on Leilani Hart's July 22, 2020 confession, notarized affidavit confession to the worst type of crimes against children and her illegal immigration concerns, right? Her illegal immigration concerns and the worst type of crimes against children, and within her own family, implicating her own family in the worst type of crimes against children. Why did he not do that? He was close to her. He was close to her. Um, I mean, he used her, and he absolutely knew she was a criminal, and she's a convicted criminal, and she has a long criminal history that goes back to before Richard was even born. And yet, why did he fail to report that? Why did he fail to report the conflicts of interest with RNA Chavira Auto Group and his connection to Richard through that group, right? Why did he fail to report on Leilani Hart and her worst type of crimes against children and her uh, illegal immigration concerns? And she was the mother of Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart. Why didn't he report on that? Why did he fail to mention that? And that all these her ties with Clem Coward, Richard's commanding officer. He absolutely knew all of that. He knows. Um, and he left off all of those conflicts of interest, all of those very important details, and it goes on and on. And he didn't even report that Leilani Hart had been identified as the prime suspect in Richard's murder case, along with her family member, um, um, CID Fort Bliss CID um, agent, who is former because he lost his job, Tavita Nusa. Why didn't Bob Moore report on that? Why didn't Kathleen Gannon report on that? Right? Why didn't Angela Kachurga report on that? And why doesn't he say that he has a conflict of interest with El Paso Times right now? Because he's a leasehold, he's a tenant of the El Paso Times building. And then why didn't he say he has these family ties with Manuel Chavira, right? And his wife Teresa Chavira, who had in our discussions um, with officials, you learn that, some shocking things that, the rumor has it, and I don't want to report rumors, but this is important to this case, that Teresa Chavira had a very close relationship to Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr. Pretty close relationship that probably would not make her husband happy, but maybe it did, because Nieto, being the FBI agent there in El Paso, protected Manuel Chavira in some of his up to no good situations that he was in. That because you know, was unqualified for the position. He didn't have a peacekeeper's license, police officer's license. He didn't have that, which was necessary to be appointed or picked, given the job of chief of police for El Paso ISD. And that, that ruffled a lot of feathers. And maybe that's why they didn't like Judge Roger Rodriguez, because he was the magistrate judge in that situation, um, in that case. So he knew through that case, um, you know, that Manuel Chavira was not qualified to get that position, and that's something that is stinky. Then that's stinky. I don't know if he thought, oh, geez, that's kind of stinky, but I thought it. I thought, okay, upon learning that information, that's pretty stinky. Why did Manuel Chavira get it? Because we know through our investigation that he is related to Willie Moya, not no, not a chocolatier, not a chocolate factory. No, this is the community destroying Mexican cartel head. That's who Willie Moya was, a community destroying Mexican cartel uh, head. And so it was not a good thing to be related to him. It's like, you know, uh, just like Michael Mayella, and Lorraine Mayella and Alexis Mayella. It's not a good thing that, they're related to Patrick Crucius. Who wants to be related to Patrick Crucius? You can't just go on and not say anything when you're related to Patrick Crucius and Manuel Chavira, and even the Texas Ranger that was put in charge of our case. He is related to Manuel Chavira and also Willie Moya and Arturo Alba, who's was very high up there, because he's like a Bob Moore. He was the journalist. He was like Bob Moore. He could falsely um, he could manipulate evidence, he could intimidate witnesses, he could, by using the media, by weaponizing the media, by weaponizing false stories and taking in false sources, convicted criminal false sources like Leilani Hart, and manufacturing a false story in order to destroy a person, right? To destroy careers, to retaliate against a whistleblower. And so when Bob Moore and Kathleen Gannon, are right there in part of December 2019, the beginning of the retaliation, the targeting and retaliation of our son, um, that started right then, um, at you know, the end of 2019. And you saw that, and then to have these name similarities like with Melendez, right? Um, and people involved all having these connections, these family connections, because not only are they connected with Willie Moya, not a chocolatier, but the community destroying Mexican cartel head, nightlife person, kind of like Leilani Hart. Um, they do a lot in those bars and everything. But they were also related to Nidal Baem, the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado. So this has been confirmed, and Arturo Alba, so Manuel Chavira is related to Nidal Baem. And so they were all working in concert. They were all had a role in tampering with evidence, targeting witnesses, intimidating witnesses, um, retaliating against witnesses, um, obstructing justice, you name it. Being an accessory, I really feel like Bob Moore and Kathleen Gannon are accessories to murder, because of the part that they played, because refusing to report on Richard's whistleblowing reports, um, kept him as a target. You see, kept him as a target, because if they would have reported his whistleblowing reports, it would have forced even the criminal Sean Bernabe, the treasonous Sean Bernabe, and well, at that time, who was at Matlock, the treasonous Matlock, into protecting, or Clem Coward, right? The treasonous Clem Coward, to protecting Richard as a whistleblower. And if they would have continued to report um, both sides, right? Both sides, it would have um, pressured even treasonous Sean Bernabe to handle the case much differently. But they are an accessory to the crimes, all the way up to the worst crimes. And this is why it's very, very important to support President Trump in his cleaning out of the Mexican cartel influences, Mexican cartel infiltration, um, eh, in El Paso, in all of the positions, because they're up to no good. They want grand theft larceny. They look at Fort Bliss as woohoo, let's go grand theft larceny, right? And that's just breach of our security, the destruction of our communities, the destruction of our country. And so the people that are connected to this criminal group, and I want to say that RNA Chavira Auto Group is proving itself to be a criminal organization. They already went into bankruptcy. They already changed their name. Now they have court cases for deceptive practices. Gosh, do you think that Bob Moore is involved in deceptive practices? Yeah, I think so. I think there's hard evidence. Hard evidence. Yeah, he's absolutely involved and he's disgraced. He's disgraced. He is absolutely um, someone that destroys a community, the safety of a community, the future of our children, right? He is absolutely in the mode of destructing the future of our children. And, so he has absolutely crossed the line. He is not just a bias reporter, he's a criminal. He's absolutely criminal, and so is his wife, Kathleen Gannon, and their family relationship with Raquel Prino, and Primo, I think it's Prino, or whatever. Um, um, I think she got married. Yeah, I think she got married. Um, and then their relationship with Alexander Chavira, with this ANR Chavira. It is, the hard evidence is that they were from the beginning. They were accessories from the beginning because Richard was a whistleblower and they wanted to silence him. They wanted to scare the hell out of him and they wanted to silence him, and they were accessories, I believe very, very much so, to his murder. And then, of course, the false narrative that went on and on from them, and their lack of wanting to um, give the uh, Mayela Crucius wedding information, the Nidal Baem. Why didn't they report on Nidal Baem? They had it. They had that he was caught on CCTV footage confessing that Richard was dead, confessing being an FBI imposter. Why didn't they report on him, saying that Richard, really literally that Richard was, um, dead, and they were looking in many different places confirming that he was dismembered, right? Dismembered and over there in Juarez, that the FBI had found Richard's remains in Juarez, and that was on CCTV footage, and with the cashier witness less than an hour after it happened. Well, it's because they have family relations with Chavira, and Chavira has family relations with Nidal Baem and Bradford Bugado. They are family, and Chavira, of course, Teresa Chavira had, a very intimate past, relationship with Nieto. Why is Nieto even the FBI agent there? I mean, the conflicts of interest are, uh, so clear. And so and then they send uh, another family member, Texas Ranger Gustavo Sanchez, who they're family with, to investigate. I'm going to investigate, and so that's why it is just a miracle with all of that going on that we're so fast, that we are absolutely so fast in uncovering all of this. Could it have been done quicker? Yes, but we have, a system that wants you to never find out, that wants you to stay in the dark, that wants you to stay in the matrix, that wants you to never know that you're getting robbed. Uh, Through these agencies, that you're getting absolutely robbed, and that your security is breached, and that our soldiers are targets, who you say thank you for your service. They're targeting them for many different reasons, and if they're a whistleblower, then they're targeted, to the extreme, to silence them. And Bob Moore's is the uh eh, well, uh, I guess he's the runner-up. I guess he's the runner-up leader of this community destroyer, because El Paso Community Foundation is really the mob boss, right? Is the mob boss. Um, and they're all connected to, like, Joe Spencer. I hope you know that. They're all connected to Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart, and the mob, the criminal mob that they uh associate with, that absolutely facilitated um uh, retaliating against our family, harassing our family, threatening our family, um and just everything that we've gone through. And so with their big group, um criminal group, it's everything being exposed is just absolutely, uh, it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. And so we are, depending on you for sharing, because of course we're being shadow banned. So we're depending on everybody to share this information, that Bob Moore and his wife Kathleen Gannon, and through their organizations, through their positions, they weaponized their media platforms, in order to uh, conduct, engage in, facilitate a mother load of crimes. A mother load of crimes. That's what they did. And it led to death. And it led to death. So many deaths. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable how many deaths you can go back to Bob Moron, uh, because of weaponizing his platform. and not reporting truthfully. Um, and then not only that, this group. So, and I almost missed this tonight because it's so late. But I wanted to let you know that Willie Moya is connected to Luis Rene Diaz of the DA's office under Bill Hicks. So as soon as Bill Hicks got in there, uh, he assigned without any kind of background check. They waived the background check because he was indicted with Arturo Alba. Arturo Alba didn't survive, right? He was was killed by gunfire. With Willie Moya, it got really, but um, but Luis Rene Diaz, when he got into that DA's office, then the full fledged retaliation to cover up what we had accomplished, what we were accomplishing through discovering who Nidal Baem was and everything, and all of this other information. And then Judge Rodriguez came out with the whistleblower report, which was just absolutely devastating to the criminals and such a blessing to us. But they wanted to wipe it away. They wanted to wipe it away. And we're like, why do you want to wipe this away? It was because they are the Bob Moore group. They are the Willie Moya, not the chocolate factory. We're talking about the community destroying Mexican cartel head is related with Luis Rene Diaz inside the DA's office, right? And that made every sense when we found that out because Bill Hicks was uh, plotting and scheming to remove Yvonne Rosales, even going on social media and saying things. And then now he's in that office. Who made the call, right? Was that El Paso Community Foundation's backer or something? Um, you know, to get him appointed during a recess where they don't look at his record because he's a disaster. He is the bottom of the barrel. Nobody would want to pick Bill Hicks as an appointee if you had any kind of self-respect as any kind of leader. I mean, but that's what Abbott did, and that, puts a big question mark on Abbott, doesn't it? Um, so Bill Hicks got in there, and of course, he's a usurper. Of course, he didn't sign his anti-bribe line. He didn't sign and turn in the statement of officer like it's required by the law to do to legally assume that office. He never legally assumed that office, and I call him the usurper because of that. Um, but he got his Willie Moya contact in there. That means the Mexican cartel was in the DA's office. This is this he put in Manuel Chavira's guy. He put in Gustavo Sanchez's guy. He put in Nidal Baem's guy. He put in Jesus Nieto's guy as the manager for the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office, the prosecuting office, so that they could run their crime of going after the whistleblowers. See, because the whistleblowers were MAGA. The whistleblowers were MAGA. And they went after the whistleblowers with impunity. That's what that did. And of course, they had to cover up. They had to, the medical examiner being illegal and part of this gang too plays a big role. And then Michael Mayello being the manager of the federal courthouse also plays a role. And the illegal um, uh, El Paso Magistrate Court not being elected, these judges not being elected, that plays a part. This disenfranchise of the El Pasoans plays a huge part because who appointed those imposters in there? Who appointed them? And who are they? And who are they loyal to? Because they really are up to no good, aren't they? And you can see with their rulings and everything that they're up to no good. And they just have no authority at all since 2015. They have no authority at all because they're not elected, and that by law they're supposed to be elected. So the law is very good to the people, but it needs to be enforced. And that's why they don't like a law enforcer. And that's why they really have Trump derangement syndrome, because he's a law enforcer. He sees the future. And so, and that future cannot happen in a golden way, in a bright way, in a prosperous way without laws being enforced. And so, since he is the great law enforcer, they absolutely attack anybody that's MAGA, and that includes Richard Halliday, because we know he was MAGA. Um, so, and of course, by the unbelievable 2019 video of Judge Roger Rodriguez saying publicly on international uh, reports, saying that yes, the wall needs to be built, the border needs to be secured, and the Mexican cartel are no difference from a big T organization, a very big criminal T organization. And I think I can say this with confidence that Judge Roger Rodriguez is the only MAGA judge on the border, the only MAGA judge on the border. And so, of course, they had to retaliate against him. And guess who they used to do it? Leilani Hart, who he had a year before, until they had their people in place, year before had reported in his whistleblower report as identified her as the suspect in Richard's murder case, as tampering with Richard's files, as obstructing justice with her family member, Fort Bliss CID Tavita Nusa, who is no longer that, no longer a police officer. He doesn't have a badge because he lost his badge. Maybe it's because of deceptive practices. Maybe it's because of deceptive practices. It seems like A&R Chavira Auto Group is involved in deceptive practices. We know that Leilani Hart is involved in deceptive practices. We know the Army is involved in deceptive practices. We know full well that Bob Moore and Kathleen Gannon are involved in deceptive practices. So, and I'm sick and tired of just deceptive practices. We need to get to the truth. We need to get accountability, and we need to get justice for Richard. So, thank you so much for coming on, Anicia, coming on so late. We love you for that, and we thank you for your love and your prayers. And we are absolutely in major communication right now. We're doing a lot of communication to get this all right so that we can get accountability. And we want to do it legally right, because we know that if we do it with character, that if we do it the right way, that it will benefit El Pasoans, it will benefit the Army, it will benefit our country. So we're really trying to do it legally and the right way, so that we can um, at least restrain all of this criminal activity that's happening there along the border and in our military. And I know that President Trump sings a pretty song, and I know that we have record recruits right now in the military, which um, tells you that they're willing to take a risk with this commander in chief. And so we can't. We need to make a huge, huge statement with our accountability that they better do good to our volunteer sons and daughters, that they better absolutely follow their SOPs, that they will be held accountable if they get sloppy and they become criminals, like what happened in Richard's unit. Um, yeah, we absolutely need to follow this through to safeguard our military, young volunteers, and our country, and our border. And it will absolutely cross that border into Mexico. And I'm really hoping for that because I just love Mexico, you know. I just, yeah, well, I guess it's from being raised in that area, being born in New Mexico, having this very international kind of lifestyle. I love international um, culture like that in El Paso, very rich culture. And, but it has absolutely been attacked. It has absolutely been sabotaged with this criminal network. And, and people don't have to be as poor as they are. People don't have to be as taxed as they are down there. People don't have to be so afraid of all the crimes against the worst type of crimes against children and the fraud and the waste and the abuse and the grand theft larceny that's going on, all the scamming and the conning and all of the very, very brutal crime. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be a law abiding area. And so, yeah, we absolutely um, keep going because of that hope to bring law abiding and to hold these criminals that are in our position and get people that are in that area that are um, that love the United States, that love Texas, that even love Mexico. Because why would you want things to be so bad in Texas and in the United States? Because that would ultimately always harm Mexico. So, we want good people to be in these positions, but we want them to be law abiding. We want them to have good character and be honorable. And that's what's going to ensure a very bright and golden future for us. So we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not by the Mexican cartel, for the Mexican cartel, and of the Mexican cartel that are all trapped in the CCP web, right? So we really need for you to pass this information along, and know that Bob Moore is involved in deceptive practices that are absolutely a motherlode of crimes, motherlode of crimes. That needs to be passed on. It's the power of truth, the power of truth that changes the world, right? We're supposed to spread the gospel. We're supposed to spread the gospel, and that means the truth, and not let and take these gates of hell on, meaning the corruption and all of the crime. We have to absolutely, put into the system what is good and noble and praiseworthy and has good character and honorable. That's what we need to do as Christians, and to secure the future going forward, um, in a very prosperous golden age. Thank you so much. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow. Bye bye.